one of my favorite people here. This is Mike Carter, the CEO of the London District Construction Association. Mike, you have been so fantastic for the food bank, but for me personally, you've been a real somebody who I find very inspiring. You think outside of the box, you challenge me. It's all really good. And yet for the food bank, you've done some fantastic things over the years. And to me, you volunteered in a way that's created a real effect on the food bank. How many people are you in charge of there at the LDCA? Or is it organizations?
Well, the LDCA is a fairly small organization, and we got 4 full-time employees, and we always have co-op students from Fanshawe as a general commitment to the industry to make sure that young people are exposed to construction before they go work for our members. And we have about 460 construction companies that are members of the LDCA, and they go from the very biggest, which is Ellis Dawn. The City of London's a member, Fanshawe's a member, so you got very large buyers of construction and contractors, but then most of the architects, most of the lawyers, most of the engineers, a lot of home builders are actually also part of the London District Construction Association. And we have 2 basic mottos that describe our purpose. One is we build the future, which we do.
Yeah.
And the other one is to build better communities, which we actually also do. And it really is through the building better communities that we first became involved with the food bank. And we actually, so we always have an annual member of distinction. And every year, one year it's somebody who helped build the industry. And the second year, it's somebody who helped build the community.
Yeah.
So our last member of distinction who came in through the community building stream was Andy and Helen Spreet.
Yeah.
So we and both of them are fabulously wonderful opportunities to actually make a difference. Neither one of them is any sort of obligation commitment. They're opportunities commitment, and we're fabulously happy to have the opportunity to help make the community better.
And tell us about some of the stuff that you've built, because it's pretty diverse.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Budweiser, I guess it's now Canada Life, City Hall, Western, Fanshawe.
Operating rooms, don't you do that?
Operating rooms.
Yeah.
Actually, the last time there was a construction strike, they were building operating rooms at Health Sciences, and we got a hold of all the unions involved and said, okay, so we can understand you striking a commercial establishment, but we're constructing operating rooms, and Health Sciences tells me that they have operating commitments starting mid-September. So why don't we just all sort of set it aside and get back to work? And they did, and the rooms opened up on schedule, which is actually a pretty good thing. It's nice that no matter what side of the, my interests you sit through normal times, is when the community is in need, it's all hands on deck. Let's pull to a common purpose and let's get it done, and then move on with back to normal life.
And you, you're part of Business Cares, which is awesome, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you've also helped the food bank in so many other ways. Like, how much money do you, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but roughly how much money did you send in the food bank's way last year?
I would guess. So last year, memory doesn't always serve me well, but I would say in the last 7 years, it's ourselves and our members, through all of our efforts, it's been about $750,000. I think last year was probably $230,000. A small part comes directly from LDCA, as I told you. Christmas time, we always like to be charitable, which is really the board's decision. But then a lot of our members participate fully in Business Cares through food drive, either through the LDCA, or what we always encourage them to do is participate and donate directly to the food bank. It's fine that they come through us as an intermediary, but I think for a lot of them, there's a better sense of commitment and desire to serve and satisfactions and stuff like that if you actually are directly contributing to the food bank. And that I'm unsure as to what the amount of that is, but I think it's fairly good.
One of the things that's always fun every December is that you have kind of this ongoing good natured competition with the Home Builders Association here in London, right? And you do it for business cares, and it's just so much fun. But you have a great relationship with them, right? Whether it's professionally or in this community thing as you're talking about. How long's that been going on from the beginning?
Well, so I took over LDCA 7 or 8 years ago. Lois Langdon, shout out to her, who used to be the CEO of the Home Builders. I got to know Lois well very quickly. I invited her out to a board meeting. She challenged the LDC directors to get involved with Business Cares Food Drive to provide better support to the food bank. And of course, the directors of the LDCA being challenged by the LHBA, it took like about a half a moment's notice. And not only did we commit, but we stupidly, happily said we'll actually even be better than you. Now, that hasn't happened.
So the competition started.
And so the competition started. That hasn't happened. Don't ever think it will. But it gives us some motivation every year, additional to the motivation that we actually have, as to try to get closer to the home builders. And we have increased our contributions substantially every year. But we just can't keep up with the home builders because they must have a bug in my office and they know what we're doing. And they always come up and beat us by a wonderful amount that actually helps the food bank. So it's all great.
Mike, where does all this come from in you? I realize that in a corporate setting, there's often community commitments and things like that come from it. But I sense that personally, you have a real interest in that aspect of helping community volunteering. Where did that come from? Was that from your parents? Was it your upbringing? Did it come from something else?
I would say it probably came from something else, and a bunch of it's professional. You would know this.
Yeah.
You get to a point in your life professionally where, and with a family life, it's all been, for me, highly dedicated. I was with Canadian Pacific Limited. I used to travel like 50 weeks a year all over North America doing CP business. So you never really had the opportunity to participate. But the vehicle, it started probably 10 years before. I used to run trade schools in Toronto. And as part of every one of our class curriculums, our students had to go into Jane Finch Corridor and do volunteer work. Because you would know, everybody would know Jane Finch Corridor has a very bad, and I would say mostly appropriate reputation as being a very difficult part of Toronto. What I would tell you is I would tell everybody, here's the story. Probably 90% of the people living in Jane Finch are hard-working, honest people just trying to get on with their life as best as they can get on with. They have this unfortunate other part. But we used to go in there and do all sorts of projects with their community centers, with their health centers, with citizens, where we would go in and refinish all the hallways and beautify and try to, provide them an opportunity to have a little more pride in their communities. And that's really where it got started, because it was fabulous to see the positive impact you could have on people's lives who were in some need at a present time and just needed some assistance to get better focused on positive things. And so carried it here. Luckily, Lois showed up. It was an immediate, and I've told you this, I mean, I'm just an expression of our board. Our board is latently very community orientated, and a lot of them do a lot of charitable work in a whole range of different community environments, and this just happened to be a very good start to our ever expanding engagement in the community, because it does make a difference. I mean, people can say all they want, but it is a positive impact. Will it change the world tomorrow? Probably not. But we do know that if we don't help out, that it's not as good tomorrow as it could be if we are helping out.
I said at the beginning that I think Mike means the world to us as a food bank, and there's a lot of reasons, Mike. And I think you've outlined some of these things and the support that you've given. You know, $750,000 is nothing to sneeze at. But for me personally, what you have done in the realm of ideas has probably eclipsed that for me, or transcended that. You and I sit down and we talk about community, or we talk about food security, or whatever it is, and you've always got these ideas and thoughts going in your head. But can you tell us a bit about Farm in a Box? This is something that we are doing with you folks. I'll let you explain it. But the point was, you did it for a special occasion that was coming up for the LDCA, and then you just kept going with it. Can you just explain it to us briefly?
Yeah, so we turned 125 years old. We started in 1898, so it was 2 years ago. And the board sat around, and we decided that we wanted to. So at year 150, we wanted the board at that point in time to be able to look back to 125 and say that the board at that point in time decided to do something of a long-term positive impact for the community that they could look back at and say, right,
Yeah.
we should actually be so well engaged with the community, and hopefully then they would come up with their own further commitment. So once we started doing that, we turned to the food bank and the ever increasing demands on the food bank, and the fact that the $250 that we gave last year was probably only equivalent to, let's call it, the $225 that we gave the year before, because food inflation has just gone bonkers. And I would always say this: it's discretionary whether you want to buy a car. It's discretionary whether you want to buy a frozen pizza. It's discretionary if you want to go to the movies. But at a very basic level, people need to have accommodation, and they actually need to have food.
Yeah.
If you don't cover those two basic needs, I'm going to guess your community is not nearly as good as it could be. So we started looking at that, and we started doing some research, and we decided that as a supplemental complementary strategy to the exceptionally good strategy that the food bank has, is that an exploration into the world of self-production of food, and then consequently less exposure constantly to the price of food, that it's a great concept to explore. Not to say that it would take over any of the other food gathering and food distribution strategies, but it is something worth exploring, because as you go out 25 years, you have no, I'm assuming it would be great if there was no need for a food bank, but I could never actually foresee that ever. And you don't know where you may be 25 years down the road, or 10 years down the road, or 15 years down the road. So this is a risk management strategy that produces a tremendous amount of food of whatever type you want, but also not be so completely dependent upon the price of food, and alternative strategies that we think actually have some risk associated with it. So that was the basic genesis. We sat around, spent the better part of a board meeting kicking around various ideas, and as I explained to you, I think when we first met to discuss this, our commitment to the food bank is unconditional. So it's never a question of, is it this, is it that, is it this, is it that, is it this, is it that. That all comes out in the wash, but the commitment is unconditional. So I think we went in to a discussion with you with 3 different alternatives, I think is what we chatted about. One was the, let's turn the space around the LDCA into gardens, so you could grow food. We actually had a full commitment that if you didn't want to do that and you wanted to put a greenhouse there, we would work to put a greenhouse there. And then the other alternative was the Farm in a Box.
Containers.
Yes. Well, the the higher end classification of this is controlled environment agriculture.
Yeah.
But farm in a box is actually, I think, an easier concept for people to get at. And it was then what was the best approach. So you could buy already prearranged, not containers, but they were structures. Or you could do a CCAN based approach. And for similar output, we determined we could probably get it done for 25 or 30% less expensive, which was not so much a question of money for the LDCA because we had X amount of money and so you buy what you buy, but it actually would add more food generation capacity than we could do elsewise. Yeah. And I think we chatted about it. It then actually also has incremental benefits, and so incremental benefits being it now becomes much more of a community project as opposed to purchase and run project. Yeah. And part of it was an exploration as to, well, how uncomplex could you make something so that if a smaller food bank wanted to explore this, they could actually have a roadmap with an understanding as to, you know, the risks, the benefits, all that kind of stuff, and then make a determination as to whether it was feasible in their environment. Because there's, while we're putting all this together, we're not assuming any IP. It's all going to be open source for any community organization from that point on. So that was the genesis. You folks seemed to be interested, and away we went.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to all of that, and I love it because it's experimentation. There's failure built in, right? Like we're learning as we go along, but you don't let the failure hold you back. You learn from that and develop something a little bit better, so that it works. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and the process has been. I mean, you're well aware of it. One of the very first things we did, as we have design concepts. We did a lot of market research. We did this, we did that, and then we turned one of your coolers into a lab, and the lab is always, I mean, in commercial enterprising of any point in time, you would always do lab scale before you do full scale, and we got in, we implemented the technology that's going to be in the full operations. Luis actually has had a good opportunity to get to know how you farm in a controlled environment, the issues that you deal with, all that kind of stuff. So that the hope is that by building a lab and operating a lab, is that the potential for multiple crop failures is diminished. Yeah. Because there'll always be a big learning curve. You basically jump off a cliff when you hit the light switch. You've done an awful lot of, you talk to an awful lot of people, site visit other places, blah, blah, blah. But the minute you hit the switch and you are operating one of these farms, you have limited, it's not like growing outside. You have limited capacity for things to go wrong, right? It's a very intense growing up environment. And so if something goes wrong, you have hours, and I think Luis has already experienced a failure related to how long it takes to respond. So you try to learn, what to do, what not to do, so you don't put yourself in those situations. And that if you do have one of those situations, it's maybe a one situation, not a first time it happens, oh my gosh, but look what happened, when you're completely unawares, then you have to start to prepare so that for the next time. So the hope is that we've cut crop failures down to maybe one as opposed to multiples. But
Mike, it's my hope that you and the LDCA, and I don't know how we could better express it, but you mean so much to us, not just from the standpoint of helping at business cares or doing all the things that you've done for us over the years, but this idea generating kind of thing, because we are that kind of organization as well. And we meet you on a really good level there. I think we have certain needs, things we're trying to accomplish. You have certain skills, can help us to know how to get there. But it's really worked out really well. And I hope all of you understand what that means to us, because tomorrow is actually in that idea thing. Right, and you're really helping us to get there.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, it's not just on the idea side, I think over the last couple, 3-4 years, most of your ongoing maintenance or small business needs kind of stuff related to maintenance and all that kind of stuff, our members are there like,
They're good. They know what they're doing. Yeah.
call us and away we go. I mean, John Harris has been very involved in gathering the troops to help you folks rearrange your whole entranceway and how you process your clients when they come in for food and all that kind of stuff to streamline and make all that kind of stuff better.
Yeah.
Get involved in, I think there was a heavy storm.
Yeah. So windows needed to be replaced.
Yeah,
all that stuff,
and here's what I would tell everybody: it's not an obligation on the part of any of our members, because any of our members are not obligated to do it. They see it as an opportunity because they all give back.
Yeah, they do.
This is just then a new opportunity for them to actually give back. I would say partially for just the pleasure of helping out, but then actually also to establish a norm of behavior that gets passed down to the next gen.
Yeah.
Because both of us have gray hair, so
well.
we have pleasant retirements looking us in the face, not 30 more years of career.
Yeah.
So it's very important that the next gen see the difference, the positive difference that the community building actually makes.
Special guy in a special organization. Thank you, Mike. And thanks, LDCA. It's awesome.
Thanks, Glenn. Enjoyed it.